You know that feeling when you hear something in your house late at night? That creak, that scratch, that thump. You tell yourself it's just the house settling, just pipes, just the wind. Because believing anything else, believing something is actually in there, that's too terrifying to consider. I used to think like that. I used to rationalize every sound, until I couldn't anymore. Until the sounds started responding. My name's Chris, and I bought a house in Minneapolis, Minnesota last spring. A beautiful old Victorian, built in 1904. Original hardwood floors, high ceilings, crown molding, character, history, everything I dreamed of. The inspector said it was solid, no termites, no foundation issues, just a perfect old house. What he didn't tell me, what he couldn't have known, was that the walls were full, and what was inside them. It knew I was there. I moved in on a Saturday in April. Sunny day, perfect weather. My friends helped me carry furniture. We laughed, joked about the creaky stairs, the drafty windows, all the quirks that come with old houses. By evening, everything was unpacked. My friends left, and I was alone. In my house, my space. I made dinner, watched TV, felt proud. At 31 years old, I finally owned a home. This was adulthood. This was success. I went to bed around 11 p.m., exhausted from the move, ready for a good night's sleep in my new bedroom. That's when I heard it. Around 2 a.m., scratching sound, soft, rhythmic, coming from inside the wall, right behind my headboard. Scritch, scritch, scritch. I opened my eyes, listened. The sound continued, steady, deliberate. I told myself it was mice. Old houses get mice. I'd call an exterminator in the morning, set some traps, deal with it. I rolled over, tried to ignore it, but the scratching got louder, more insistent, like whatever was making it was trying harder, trying to get through. I turned on the light. The sound stopped. Immediate silence. I waited. 5 minutes. Nothing. I turned off the light. 30 seconds later. Scritch. 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 Starting again. I spent that first week pretending it was normal. I called an exterminator. He came out, set traps in the attic, checked for entry points, found nothing. No sign of rodents, he said. No droppings, no nesting materials. Whatever you're hearing, it's probably just thermal expansion. Wood expanding and contracting with temperature changes. Totally normal in houses this age. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But thermal expansion doesn't scratch, doesn't move, doesn't stop when you turn on lights and start when you turn them off. The sound spread. By the second week, they weren't just behind my headboard anymore. They were in other walls, in the ceiling, in the floor. I'd hear them in the kitchen while making breakfast, scratching inside the cabinets. But when I opened the doors, nothing. Just dishes and glasses and empty space. I'd hear them in the living room, in the wall behind the TV. I'd press my ear against the plaster. Listen. The scratching would stop, like it knew I was listening, like it was listening back. Then, after a moment of silence, I'd hear it somewhere else. Across the room, upstairs, in the basement, like whatever it was moving, traveling through the walls, following me. I started documenting it, recording with my phone, video of the walls while the sounds happened. But the recordings captured nothing, just silence, static. The scratching was real when I heard it, but disappeared when I tried to prove it existed. I showed my friend Kevin one of the videos. "Dude, there's nothing there," he said. "Maybe you need to get your hearing checked. Or maybe you're just stressed. New house, new mortgage. It's a lot." I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't stressed. The sounds were real. I knew they were real. Week 3. The scratching changed. It became different, more purposeful. It started following patterns. 3 scratches, Pause. 3 scratches. Pause. Like Morse code. Like communication. I'd be in the bathroom. Hear it behind the mirror. 3 scratches. I'd move to the bedroom. 3 scratches in the ceiling above me. Kitchen. Living room. Hallway. Always 3. Always following me. Always knowing exactly where I was. I stopped sleeping well. Started staying up later. Dreading going to bed. Dreading the darkness when the sounds got worse. Got closer. Got louder. One night, I was lying in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. It was just past midnight. The scratching started, right above me, in the attic. But it wasn't just scratching anymore. It was moving. I could hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, walking across the attic floor, from one end to the other. But that was impossible. The attic was full of insulation and old boxes, barely enough room to crawl. Nothing could walk up there, nothing human-sized. But the footsteps continued, back and forth, pacing. I grabbed my flashlight, my keys. I was going up there. I was going to see what was making those sounds. End this. Prove it was nothing. Or prove it was something and deal with it. The attic access was in the hallway ceiling, a pull-down ladder. I yanked it open. The ladder unfolded with a screech of old hinges. I climbed up, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The attic was exactly as the inspector had described. Low ceiling, exposed rafters, insulation everywhere, boxes stacked along the walls. Old, left by previous owners. Nothing else. No animals, no people, no footsteps. Just empty space and dust. But as I stood there, shining my light around, I noticed something. The dust on the floor. It was disturbed. Not by me. I just climbed up, but there were marks, patterns in the dust, like something had been moving through it, dragging through it. I followed the marks with my light. They led to the far corner, to the wall, to a section where the plaster looked different, newer, patched. I approached slowly, knelt down, put my hand against the wall. It was warm. Everything else in the attic was cold. But this section, this patch, it was warm, almost hot, like something behind it was generating heat, like something was alive. I pressed my ear against it, listening. I could hear breathing, slow, steady, in and out, in and out. Something was breathing behind the wall, something big enough to breathe like a person. I jerked back, my heart racing. That's when the scratching started again, but not from behind the wall, from everywhere, all around me, every wall, every surface. The attic filled with the sound of scratching, overlapping, multiplying, like dozens of things, hundreds of things, all scratching at once, all trying to get out, or trying to get to me. I scrambled for the ladder, climbed down so fast I nearly fell, pulled the attic door shut, but the scratching didn't stop. It followed me down, into the walls of the second floor, then the first floor, then the basement. The entire house was alive with sound, scratching and tapping and that rhythmic breathing. I ran outside, into the front yard, into the cold night air, away from the house. I stood on the sidewalk, looking back at my home, my beautiful Victorian. Every window was dark, every room silent. From the outside, it looked peaceful, normal, but I could still hear it, even from out here. Faint, but there, the scratching, coming from inside. I called Kevin, begged him to come over to hear it, to confirm I wasn't crazy. He arrived 20 minutes later. We went inside together, stood in the living room, listening. Nothing. Complete silence. See, he said, there's nothing here, man. You're psyching yourself out. But the moment he left, the moment I was alone again, it started, louder than ever, like it had been waiting, like it knew when I was alone. When no one else could hear, I did research, looked up the house history. The previous owners had lived here for 30 years. Before that, a family in the 70s. Before that, records got fuzzy. But I found something. A newspaper article from 1952. A renovation project. The house had been extensively remodeled, walls rebuilt, rooms reconfigured. The article mentioned they'd found structural anomalies during the work, spaces that shouldn't exist between walls. But it didn't elaborate, didn't explain what that meant, just spaces. Empty spaces. Between the walls. Where something could exist. Where something could live. I hired a contractor, told him I needed to open up a wall, check the framing, see what was behind the plaster. He came out. We picked the wall in my bedroom, the one where the scratching was loudest, where it had started. He cut through the plaster with a sawzall, pulled away chunks of lath, exposed the interior, and we saw nothing. Just empty space. Standard wall cavity, 2x4 studs, electrical wire, insulation, normal. Exactly what should be there. See, the contractor said. Nothing unusual, just a regular wall. You want me to patch this up? But as he was packing his tools, as we were standing there looking at the open wall, I saw something. Movement, deep in the cavity, between the studs, in the shadows where his work light didn't reach. Something shifting. I grabbed my flashlight, shined it into the gap, and I saw eyes, multiple eyes, reflecting back at me, unblinking, watching. Then they were gone, vanished into darkness, into spaces that couldn't exist, into walls that were only 6 inches deep but somehow contained infinite shadow. The contractor didn't see them. He'd been looking away, checking his phone. He patched the wall, left, charged me $300, and I was alone again, with the knowledge that something was in there, something that could look out, something that could watch, something that knew I'd seen it. That night, the sounds changed again. They weren't scratching anymore. They were voices, whispers, coming from every wall, every ceiling, every floor. Too many voices to count, overlapping, saying my name. Chris, 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 over and over, in the walls, around me, surrounding me. I couldn't escape them, couldn't hide. My own house had become a cage, and I was trapped inside with whatever lived in the spaces between. I moved out 2 days later, packed my essentials, left everything else, put the house on the market, sold it at a loss. I don't care. I couldn't stay there. Couldn't spend another night listening to those whispers, feeling those eyes watching, knowing that the walls I thought were solid, were actually full of something that shouldn't exist, something that had been there long before me, something that would be there long after, living in the spaces we can't see, the gaps in our architecture, the cavities in our walls, waiting, watching, scratching. I rent an apartment now. Modern building, concrete and steel, thin walls, but at least I can see through them. At least I know what's on the other side. But sometimes, late at night, I hear it. That familiar scratching starting soft, growing louder. And I wonder if it followed me. If whatever was in that house, it's not bound to one location. Maybe it's in all walls, all spaces, all the hidden places we build our lives around. Maybe we're never really alone in our homes. Maybe we just choose not to listen. Choose not to hear what's scratching on the other side, trying to get through, trying to reach us, saying our names and voices too quiet to quite understand. If you're fascinated by more bone-chilling experiences from people who discovered their homes were harboring things beyond explanation, make sure to subscribe to Campfire Nightmares. And I really need to know, have you ever heard sounds in your walls or ceiling that seemed too deliberate to be random? Sounds that felt like they were aware of you? Tell me what you heard in the comments. Because I think there are more houses like mine. More walls that are full. More people hearing whispers in the night and pretending it's nothing.